I can see our very senior ASCE member, Mr. Satish Dupelia, joining us. Welcome, sir.
I think Arvind Bhai also has joined, I believe.
Who?
Arvind Bhai?
Arvind sir is there? Okay, he's our first president.
I don't know. I saw his name somewhere.
Okay. So we have crossed around 550 participants.
Yes, 520.
Dr. Guna is also mute, so request to unmute him. Otherwise, we will have a silent webinar.
धनंजय ते unmute करा दे.
I think you can unmute now by yourself.
I think as co-host, we'll be able to unmute ourselves.
Dr. Varghese, I'll send you a chat.
Yeah. What's the chat?
And Dr. Varghese, is the seminar being recorded?
Yeah, YouTube, sir.
Okay.
Dr. Elias, please unmute yourself, sir. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, sir. Good evening.
Welcome, Dr. Elias.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can hear you.
شو صار؟ What? I'm in the party.
We have around 600 participants till now.
So can we start up or what?
Yes, I think it is 6:07.
I think
Another couple of minutes. Can Dr. Guna can talk? Dr. Guna is muted. Can someone unmute him? Even Mr. Tom Smith.
So you want to check the sound?
They are mute. They are on mute. We need to unmute them. All ASCE members, staff members, and board of directors. Dr. Varghese, can you hear me?
So Anna, I have just unmuted you. This is Ravi.
Whom to be done, sir?
This is
Anna,
Guna.
Anna, I have just done.
Yeah, Guna is done.
Then what is the name for Tom Smith?
P. Smith it was written, sir.
Oh, I see.
Yes,
T. Smith.
T. Smith.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
very well, sir.
yeah, we
Thank
can.
you.
Sir.
so I'm not able to unmute him.
Okay, I'm unmuted. It looks like
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is Tom Smith. Thank you.
Everyone,
Tom, you
yeah.
are muted now.
Yes,
Yeah,
good evening,
great,
everybody.
Good evening.
Good morning to you.
And good
Thank you.
morning. Yes. And who else needs to be unmuted?
Megan,
Emily
Emily,
And-
Megan.
and
And
Anna.
was-
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Megan.
Great
Good
to have you. Okay,
And was Elias unmuted? I saw Elias, but I didn't hear him.
Yeah, he's unmuted. He muted himself.
It looks like Emily is still.
Okay,
oh, there she's unmuted.
Emily, you are unmuted now. Can you say something to test?
Yes, hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening. And who else needs to be unmuted?
Christine,
Anna?
Christine.
Anna.
Anna, can you speak? Let's test yours as well. We're not hearing Anna. Anna, it looks like you're unmuted, but we're not hearing you yet.
You need to unmute your, it's on our screen, Anna.
We're still not hearing Anna. We heard Emily. Looks like Anna's muted right now, unmuted. There we go. Oh, I think we heard you for a second there, Anna.
I'm here. Thank you.
There
Now
you
I'm
are.
Okay. All
We need
systems.
to unmute Christine also.
Christine is unmuted. I just did that.
Okay.
Evening, I am unmuted, but I'll mute myself as I'm just taking notes and passing questions along. So
Sure.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
So Christine, I wanted to know how would you send the questions to me?
so I think she was planning to send questions directly to me. Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And how would I get the questions? Would you send it? How would you like to do that?
Sure. If she wants to send the questions to you, then you want to read them out loud.
Yeah, I would be conducting the Q&A session.
Okay.
So how do I get the questions sent to me?
She'll email them to you. I believe she has your email.
Okay. That would be great. So you have my
Another
email,
very
right?
senior member, Mr. Arvind Sai, is also there.
Okay. Good evening, sir, Mr. Arvind Shah. Welcome.
Welcome, Arvind bhai.
So Ravi and Ravindra, anybody from our agency partners and stuff that you see?
Yeah, Dr. Varghese, he is from KDK College.
Yeah.
No.
You know, amongst the
I'm talking
invitees.
about
Yeah.
from anybody from the metro.
Oh, okay, that
Yeah.
I'll search of once, let them all get registered, then I'll see it, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so another very well-known structural engineer, Mr. Nirav Modi, has joined the
Hello,
Spectrum.
Arvind.
Excellent. Greetings.
And welcome to Mr. Sontake. He has also joined.
Okay, okay. Uh-huh. சரி ஓகே ஓகே ஞான் இருக்கு ஞானும் உன்னை பார்த்தேன் வந்து சரி நம்ம மெயில் ஐடி மட்டும் கொடுத்தா போதும்ல
Okay, Guna, what language was that?
Kerala and Tamil.
Ah, okay.
So Ravindra, over to you.
Okay, we start, Dr. Varghese.
Yeah, 674 participants already.
Dr. Varghese, can you hear us?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Is it audible, sir?
Yes, sir. Let's start, sir.
Yeah. Some connectivity problem had come.
Okay. So, Dr. Guna, shall we start?
Please. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Dr. Varghese, can we
Yes, sir.
start? Yeah.
Right, sir. Good evening. I, Dr. Walsan Varghese, Professor and Head of the Department, Civil Engineering, KDK College of Engineering. Welcome on behalf of ASCE Indian Section, Western Region, and KDK College of Engineering, all the participants and distinguished guests, President Dr. N.GUNALAN and Executive Director Thomas Smith, ASCE, on the occasion of series of e-talk and especially this webinar on ASCE Infrastructure Report Card being organized by ASCE ISWR and KDK College of Engineering, Nagpur. American Society of Civil Engineers, ASCE, is often provide expert testimony on infrastructure matter. Today, in presence of distinguished officials from ASCE, will highlight and enlighten about the ASCE report card, a memorable and remarkable attempt by ASCE. We express gratitude to all the participants with over 23,000 registration, 2,300 registrations, and even from 28 countries. Before we begin our today's session, I request everybody to rise at the place of your convenience for national anthem.
भारत बाजा
पंजाब
सिंध गुजरात मराठा
उत्कल बंगा
हिमाचल यमुना गंगा
पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उज्जल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Hello.
Yeah.
Dhananjay,
Reading is regular. This all might not coincide, but at least
what has happened?
can be reduced, can be minimum. That will reduce
I,
the cost.
I still hear you. Ravindra, I think it's probably over to you.
And the structure is
Tom.
unsymmetrical. The distribution is not
Is it?
continuous. Distributing the four is very easy. That causes additional caution. And that's not the only reason that
Is
is
it?
caution. Sometimes the forces released might also be caution. It might produce a moment above the vertical axis. But this provides
Finding Nemo.
an opportunity.
Nemo.
Hello. Shall we proceed on, sir?
Yeah, sir.
Yeah. ASCE Indian Section Western Region has been instrumental in promoting the objectives of ASCE and has been organizing many events over past years. The president of ASCE ISWR, Engineer Ravindra Ringshia, who has a 28 years of experience in execution, planning and designing of vast variety of civil projects, has completed construction engineering graduation and post-graduation from USA in construction management and structure, and is looking after family-owned construction business. Engineer Ravindra Ringshia has successfully executed many projects, some of which are World Bank aided water sewer treatment pumping plants in Mumbai, World Bank aided water reservoir Mumbai, pile foundation projects, micro piles, stone columns, anchors, cast in situ piles, residential buildings up to 40 floors including design, structural repairs and renovations, pipe laying, infrastructure projects, metro, smart city. Engineer Ravindra Ringshia is a very active member of ASCE in India. He has worked on various committees of ASCE in India and has successfully organized more than 40 events all over Western India since last 20 years. He is one of the founder members of ASCE ISWR and is past secretary of ASCE India section. He is also associated with many other technical associations, both at national and international level. Now I request Engineer Ravindra Ringsia, President ASCE ISWR, for the welcome speech. Sir Ravindra.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, friends. And I hope all are doing fine during this pandemic faced by our world. It used to be fun to attend real-time seminar, live seminar, involving traveling, hotel stay, meeting new people, personal interaction with them. And after such seminar, one used to feel free, fresh, and could concentrate better after seminar in one's daily routine. But today we are having virtual seminar called webinars, wherein one speaks looking at his own face and surrounded by small few other faces. Well, it has its own charm, correct? Friends, it gives me immense pleasure to welcome one and all. I, Ravindra Ringsia, President of ASCE ISWR, on behalf of ASCE ISWR and KDK Engineering College, formally welcome you all to today's webinar on ASCE Infrastructure Report Card, organized by ASCE ISWR in association with KDK Engineering College Nagpur as technical partner. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome once again this year our own President Dr. Guna. First during Feb when he visited Mumbai with his presidential team. Dr. Guna Kanchipuram is President of ASCE 2020 and is today's keynote speaker. I also welcome once again this year Mr. Tom Smith, Executive Director of ASCE. I welcome Mrs. Abby Lee, Mrs. Anna, Mrs. Megan, who have worked very hard for the success of today's webinar. I also welcome all participants who have joined in huge number across Pan-India and from outside India. I welcome all participants through Zoom and also through YouTube. I think we have around 2,400 registration from around 27 Indian states and 22 countries worldwide, including some of them Australia, Bangladesh, Germany, Ethiopia, Dubai, Singapore, Philippines, to name few. I also welcome all engineers from private and government organizations. ASCE Infrastructure Report Card is one of the most important contribution of ASCE to the society. On my request, President Guna and his team agreed to talk as on report card, a topic of immense interest worldwide. I'm sure his talk would help us understanding what report card is and how it could be implemented in India and in other emerging economy. Today's talk of Dr. Guna and his team would be roughly about 60 minutes, followed by 10 minutes question and answer session. I request all to kindly note down your questions and send it through chat to Mrs. Catherine at the end of the talk. We would try to cover as many questions as possible in a given limited time. I also welcome Dr. Walson Varghese from KDK Engineering College and his team. Dr. Walson, HOD of Civil Engineering Department, KDK Engineering College, Nagpur, India. Dr. Walson is also today's moderator, and I request him to take over today's proceeding. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have today Dr. Ravi Sinha, immediate past president, ASCE ISWR, and professor at Department of Civil Engineering, IIT Bombay. He is very actively involved in the activities of ASCE in India. Dr. Ravi Sinha is a professor of civil engineering and former dean at IIT Bombay. Professor Sinha's research work is mainly in structural engineering, specializing in earthquake engineering and disaster risk management. Professor Sinha is closely associated with policy making related to disaster risk management. Professor Sinha has chaired or served in several governmental panels. Professor Sinha is a member of Maharashtra State Disaster Management Authority. He is also the co-chairman of National Panel of Experts of Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, Government of India. He is a member of Bureau of Indian Standards Committee, responsible for codes and standards dealing with earthquake safety as well as tall structures. Professor Sinha is also a consultant to a number of companies in India and abroad. Professor Sinha completed his Bachelor of Technology from IIT Bombay, MS from Vanderbilt University, USA, and PhD from Northwestern University, USA. Dr. Sinha will introduce Engineer Thomas Smith, Executive Director, ASCE, and two further sessions. Dr. Sinha, sir.
Thank you, Professor Verghese. It's indeed an honor to be a part of this important seminar and to get a chance to address you. And so first of all, let me formally welcome Mr. Thomas Smith, Executive Director, American Society of Civil Engineers. And I would like to welcome him with a bouquet of flowers. Yes, thank you. Mr. Thomas Smith, or Tom Smith as he is more commonly known, he is a dedicated member of the American Society of Civil Engineers for more than 25 years and is a civil engineer by training. Mr. Tom Smith served as the association's Deputy Executive Director and General Counsel before becoming the Executive Director in January 2015, a position which he continues to hold for the last 5 years. As many of you would be knowing, that American Society of Civil Engineers, which was established in 1852, is the oldest national professional engineering society and has a membership of more than 150,000, including more than 11,000 from India. So ASCE has an annual operating budget of over 65 million US dollars. And the society is dedicated to advancing the art, science, and profession of engineering for the betterment of society. Mr. Thomas Smith is responsible for the day-to-day management of the society. He provides executive leadership to a staff of 250 and is an active volunteer workforce of over 7,500. And these group of people are constantly endeavoring to facilitate ASCE's tradition of supplying high quality and high value products and services to its members and other customers worldwide. So indeed, it's a huge responsibility which Tom has been performing with aplomb. So it's really a pleasure and a privilege to have Tom Smith as a part of the seminar, and I welcome him to ASCE seminar. So over to you, Tom. So Tom, you might be muted.
The host
Okay, very good. Now, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, it wasn't allowing me to unmute, so I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Ravi. Ravindra, it's great to see good friends again. I got to also thank all of you for participating here with us today. It's a great pleasure to see you here in this virtual environment. Certainly not as good as it was in February when we got to see you personally. I really want to thank you all for your hospitality. Guna and I and Ilyas Saye, who's our Region 10 Director, we had a wonderful trip through India, and I can't thank you enough for the hospitality. I got to meet Guna's family. I got to meet a lot of his friends in Chennai, and really got to see Guna do a press conference in Tamil, speaking his native tongue. It was just a fascinating thing for me to see and really want to thank you for your hospitality. We have over 12,000 members in India. We've always had a wonderful relationship with our members in India and throughout the world. As you mentioned, Ravi, we've got 150,000 members in 177 countries. And really what we try to do as a society is connect civil engineers all over the world, because we know that civil engineers are critical to the future of not just the profession, but the world, the planet itself and civilization. And we're all in this together as we look at the issues of sustainability and resilience that are so critical. So ASCE is at the forefront of this profession, and that we plan, design, construct, operate, and maintain our society's economic and social engine. That's our built environment, but we also want to make sure that we're very harmonized with the natural environment. So that's a very big focus for ASCE, and we do that worldwide. Next slide, please. We're looking at ASCE right now a lot at making sure we're moving this profession forward. We're trying to move forward faster, and we're helping individual civil engineers move their professions forward as fast as possible. We want to do that through career advancement, personal growth, building a better world, and providing value to our members. We start at the student level. In fact, we're trying to push civil engineering at the grade school level. You know, we came out with a IMAX film just a couple of years ago. And so we're trying to make sure that everybody sees how important civil engineering is to our future. As you look at the Sustainable Development Goals and the critical issues facing the planet, civil engineering is at the heart of all that. We want to make sure that you have the tools that you need. That's going to make the profession stronger, and that's going to make the planet more sustainable. So we're focusing a lot on ASCE Forward Faster. We're actually running a social media campaign right now called #ASCE Forward Faster, because we want to see what you are doing, what civil engineers do best to build a better world. So feel free to share your pictures and videos on Twitter and Instagram with that hashtag #ASCE Forward Faster, and you'll be entered in to win a $250 Amazon gift card. So next slide, please. You know, since a lot has changed since Guna and I were there. We were there in late February. I got back the first week of March. We traveled all throughout India and met many of you. And again, can't thank you enough. It was just so wonderful. And it's great to see your faces now. And I've stayed in touch with many of you as well since that time. But a lot has changed. And so, you know, COVID-19 has hit. It was really just, I guess, sort of beginning at that time to really start to spread through the United States. And I know, you know, we're struggling with it here. I know India is struggling with it as well as the rest of the planet. And we're really, we're really having to adapt and evaluate how this impacts our infrastructure, how this impacts civil engineers, how this impacts ASCE. So we've put a lot of resources up on our website. So ASCE COVID-19 resources. We've got self-care information while you're quarantined. We have free PDHs. So for instance, in the United States, many states require you to be licensed and to have continuing education to maintain your license. And in order to do that, we have webinars that are recorded that you can watch to help you maintain your license here in the United States, but also to maintain your competency wherever you are throughout the world. So all ASCE members have access to that, over 200 different webinars. So please make sure you take a look at that, all on the COVID-19 resources page. We have information on how to improve your skills at home, learning about pandemics. We have information for your kids. Dream Big, as I mentioned, was our IMAX film, but we've got a lot of individual webinars that go with Dream Big and educational materials that your kids will be interested in to learn about engineering, learn about science. So please make sure you take a look at those materials on our website. We have a Plot Points podcast that interviewed engineers throughout the world, including Guna, including Ilyas, talking about their experiences during this pandemic and how people are adjusting. We have a community called Collaborate, where you can participate and connect with engineers in every country. Talking about right now, they're talking about how to use Teams, how to use Zoom, how can you have effective teams when you're working virtually. We have information on student chapter events. We have online meeting tools, STEM outreach, science, technology, engineering, and math, how to pass the PE exam. Lots of discussions taking place on our Collaborate website. And then there's a lot of different virtual events. So later today, I know we're doing a webinar on navigating your career plan in a time of uncertainty. We're talking about exploring the impacts of COVID-19 across civil engineering specialties and a variety of different virtual events that you can see on that webpage. Next slide, please. In addition to what's happening with COVID-19, we just have our standard benefits. So there's a lot of resources I just want to make sure that you're aware of. Certainly we've got many growing student chapters in India. I think we have close to 400 student chapters at this point. I think about a fourth of those are outside the United States, and many of those are in India. Megan will be able to tell you the exact number, but we've got a growing number of student chapters in India. And I hope that all of you are utilizing these resources that you have available to you. Now, while many of us, you'll see in this at the top in the center there where it's Civil Engineering Magazine. That's a magazine that is issued monthly. And while many of us were getting this, a paper copy, I want to make sure that you all are aware that it's also, you can get the virtual copy because I read it virtually personally. I like to look at it on my phone, or you can look at it on the website. But if you download on your phone the Civil Engineering Magazine app, you can pull it up like this, and you can look at the last 10 years of Civil Engineering Magazine issues. So this last one that just came out this month is on parks. And when you pull that up, you can look at all the individual articles, including the column here by Guna called Adapting to Changing Work Environments. So please make sure you take a look at that. You can read Guna's column each month. You can read a column on ethics. You can read a column on law. You can read a column on public policy. But you can read about important projects throughout the world, including this month, I think we talked about a Danish waste to energy plant that was really interesting. So there's a lot of great information just in that one magazine. We also have magazines, as you'll see there on the screen, Geostrata, Structures Magazine, that drill down into more deeper technical content for our geotechnical engineers, structural engineers, because we have institutes for technical institutes for our members, so you can get more detailed information about transportation, coasts, oceans, ports, and rivers, environmental and water resources, construction, and a variety of different topics. I mentioned Collaborate. You'll see at the top right there, that's a forum where you can connect with civil engineers all over the world. We have something called Access Engineering that gives you access to publications, hundreds of different publications, calculators, different materials you need to be successful. We have a mentoring program. I hope you'll participate in that to connect our senior and junior engineers that both can learn from each other. I mentioned the 10 free PDHs. We have a variety of different newsletters in the technical area, but also in the professional area and the public policy area. Next slide, please. I'll also mention something that is important as we're talking about today's topic about infrastructure and the importance of infrastructure and evaluating our infrastructure and solving some of our infrastructure problems that we have here in the United States, that you have in India, and that many of us are finding around the world, is our need to invest in infrastructure and to think differently about our infrastructure, to be sustainable, innovative, resilient. And as we're doing that, we started a project called Future World Vision. We actually looked at all of these different trends facing the planet, over 120 different trends, and we narrowed those down to 6. We have a website called Future World Vision. You can access it through ASCE's website, and you can see the report that we developed evaluating, look at these trends, how they're going to impact our profession, our planet, and what are the scenarios we see evolving because of those different trends. We actually looked at different types of cities we see evolving in 50 years, 75 years away. And we looked at a rural city, a mega city, a floating city, a frozen city. We've got a variety of different things that we're evaluating. We actually rolled out something called a floating city at our annual convention last year. And that is a virtual environment that is really quite interesting because it is a computer model where we create an immersive environment with sort of evocative visuals and characters and narratives that visualize the built environment way into the future. We're going to be rolling out our mega city this year at our annual convention. Now we're going to have our annual convention virtually this year. So in the past, we've had them face-to-face at different locations. We've actually been in different locations around the world. We were in Panama City several years ago. We've been in Montreal. We were planning to be in Anaheim, California, but we just made the decision this week that we're going to hold our October annual convention virtually. So I hope that you will all participate in that, because now it's going to be much more accessible on a global scale. And you'll get a demonstration of this mega city in this virtual environment. And you'll learn about what we think the cities of the future are going to look like and what we need to be planning for, to not just think about today, but to really be thinking about tomorrow. And that's the problem that we have in the United States and we see throughout the world, is we have infrastructure nearing the end of its useful life. We need to be thinking differently and looking over the horizon and planning for that. And that's what this model helps us to do. So we hope you'll be able to participate in that. That'll be in October. We also have a technical virtual conference in September. That's going to, so we're doing a lot virtually, which I think is really good news on the global scale. It allows us to have broader participation, global participation, and I think we'll be very, very effective in doing that. So thank you all very much. We're going to move on to the next speaker, and I want to introduce Hitan Mahimtura, who is a structural engineer with 35 years of experience in designing civil projects. Hitan also holds a Master's in Science Civil Structures degree from the University of Michigan and Ann Arbor here in the United States. Hitan is the current treasurer of the ASCE India Section Western Region. He's a good friend. And Hitan, over to you.
Thank you, Tom. Can we have the next slide, please? I think, can we shift the slide up, 2 slides up? One more.
One more.
Yeah. Okay. And can you shift the next slide? Yeah. Good evening, friends. I'll be talking a little about the ASCE India Section Western Region. ASCR was founded, ASCE India Section was founded in 1999 as a Western India International Group, promoted as region, and then it was done, it was promoted in 2012. The areas which we are influenced in is Daman and Diu, Goa, Gujarat, Maharashtra, MP, and Rajasthan. We have over 4,000 members in this region, and our main our main focus is on conducting impact seminars. We have already conducted 11 international level seminars, 15 expert lecturers, 5 conventions, and 8 webinars so far. Recently, we have conducted a high impact seminar on sustainable infrastructure on February 22nd, 2020, where we met everyone in person. And our keynote speaker was President Dr. Guna, ASCE, and the Municipal Commissioner of Greater Bombay. We also give this opportunity of young members to interact with professional leaders, government seniors, and also we have the student chapter program, where we have a couple of student chapters in Bombay and Pune, and we are already inducting 2 more student chapters. One is BITS Pilani, and the second one is KDK College of Nagpur. And in case anyone would like to join the organization, we would like to get in touch with one of the office bearers. Email ID, which will be shown in the end of the presentation. You can get in touch with us. Thank you very much. And now I will be introducing Megan for the next talk. Megan Morgan Brown is the Director of Global Programs. Global Programs includes all of the international members of ASCE in 177 countries and the section and groups therein. Over to Megan.
Good morning, everyone. Good evening, everybody. It's morning time here and evening time there. Thank you so much for the beautiful flowers. I'd like to tell you that if you have the next slide, please. It's very easy for you to join ASCE. You can simply go to our website, asce.org, and right in the very front page, right at the top, there's a little link that says Join ASCE. Your membership to ASCE brings a lot of benefits. Tom Smith mentioned a lot of those today, much of which can be found electronically on the website. one of the most important things you can do is you can join one of the ASCE technical institutes for free, simply by having a membership in ASCE, and you can select that when you join, depending upon what kind of civil engineering you are practicing at the moment. Being an ASCE member will also give you participation in this particular section in this area, but there are 4 sections in India: north, south, east, and west. And this will give you access to all of the things that they are doing in your local region. Also, Tom mentioned that there are a lot of webinars on demand that you can find on ASCE webpage under continuing education. And you can have a conversation with members all around the world about things that interest you on our Collaborate website. Tom mentioned that as well. But I included these links for you on the page so that you would be able to access this very easily. Next slide, please. Keep going.
Yeah, we had only one slide, ma'am.
Right, this is not my slide. This is for Dr. Gun.
Bas, that's all.
The next slide. It's the introduction slide for Dr. Guna. Slide 19.
There was only one slide for
No, slide
yes,
19.
go to slide 19.
Slide 19. Go next.
No, that's the one.
Yes.
So,
No, go back.
Hey, Ravindra.
yeah, can you
Yes,
can
it's
you
only
go to
one.
next slide, please?
Next.
Yeah. So thank
Good.
you, Megan, for this introduction of the various facilities and the benefits which the members get at ASCE. So you saw the example of some of the activities in India, which were given by Mr. Hitan Mahentura, and Megan gave an overview of all the other kinds of benefits which you get by being a member of ASCE. And now it is our great pleasure and honor to formally welcome the president of ASCE for 2020, Dr. N.GUNALAN, in short known as Guna, to the community. And first, I would like to welcome him with a bouquet of flowers.
Thank you.
So let me give a short introduction of Dr. Gunalan. He is a Senior Vice President, Transportation, Automated Delivery, Americas for AECOM, which is the world's largest civil engineering firm. And he is based in Salt Lake City in the US. Previously, he was Vice President at Parsons Brinkerhoff, another company in the US. So Guna has managed large complex infrastructure projects, providing technical advice on civil, structural, geotechnical, pavement, and materials issues on a variety of projects around the world. His collaborative approach has contributed to many successful programs and projects, ranging from a few $1,000s to more than $3 billion US. He has been active in ASCE for many years, including leadership roles as Region 8 Director between the year 2009 to 2012, Region 8 Governor between 2005 to 2007, the Utah Section President in the years 2002 and 2003, and Texas Section High Plains Branch President way back in 1992, a very, very long association in leadership role with ASCE. He has served as the chair of ASCE's 2014 Global Engineering Conference in Panama City, in Panama, and in celebration of the 100th anniversary of the Panama Canal. Most recently, he served as governor of the Geo Institute and was a member of the steering committee of the 2017 ASCE India Conference. Guna has been married for 35 years to Duru, They have a son, Kapila, and a daughter, Pallavi. He loves to read, travel, and learn about new cultures. So over to you, Guna.
Thank you, Ravi. In keeping with our tradition, Namaskar, Namaste, Vanakkam, and good evening to all my friends. It's indeed a privilege and an honor to be here and to represent you at ASCE and to again have this opportunity to participate with you from the comfort of my own home. This is an easy and a cheap way to invite you all into my house here in the US. Any of you are always welcome. As much as you have welcomed me with your hearts and open arms.
Yeah, I'm joining you for dinner tonight.
Oh yes, please do. As Tom was talking, we had an opportunity to go to Ravindra's house and meet his lovely family when we were in Mumbai as well. So thank you, Ravindra. We still remember that afternoon with very fond memories. And I'm very glad to note that we have around 750 participants today. And I'm glad that you're able to do it from the comforts of your home. I know it is very difficult and unusual to meet this way. It is not like meeting in the lobby of a hotel with a cup of chai and almond cookies or biscuits in our hand and talking about world politics and talking about the civil engineering profession. I'm hoping that this will also pass one of these days and we will have to be able to meet again in person. But as my father always says, we have to be grateful for, little things in life. He always preached to me that, there's only two essentials, good health and an education. So all of you are keeping good health. That's important. And then this is part of an education process where we are learning new things. And hopefully we will be able to share with you a little bit about ASCE's report card and what goes into it. And it's not just going to be me talking all the time. I'm going to be ably assisted by our Managing Director for Government Relations and Infrastructure Initiatives, Emily Feenstra, and also by Anna Deneke, who's the Director for the Infrastructure Initiatives here at ASCE. There are a lot of things that ASCE does. It has two primary functions, as I always say. One is to the profession, and the other one is to the professional. But it is to the professional that's more important, and to the profession is secondary. When I say by professional, I mean you, the members of ASCE, because ASCE is an organization made up of individual members. Each and every one of you are a significant piece of this organization because the success of the organization is dependent on everyone's success. We all know that we are all competing on the platform. So ASCE's vision of making sure that all civil engineers are global leaders, enhancing the quality of life of all our fellow citizens. When we talk about quality of life, we're talking about our infrastructure, the built environment. That is what we control. That's in our domain. That's what we do. So we need to make sure that the infrastructure that we build or that we inherit is maintained, and also the ones that we build are built such that it is sustainable and resilient for the foreseeable future, and it serves the generations to come as the infrastructure that we have inherited. And you go back in history and you look at all the things that we see in India, the railways, the road systems, the water canals, the irrigation systems, all of these things have played a vital role in our quality of life. But, this pandemic has come in and put a little bit of a dose of humility in mankind, because, it basically is telling humanity that, who's actually in charge. So we have a responsibility to make sure that we not only build a good and built environment, but we also need to make sure that we take care of the natural environment that we inherit and leave it in a state and leave the resources for the generations to come. So all of this plays into what we do on a day-to-day basis. So what is this report card all about? This is something that ASCE felt very important over 2 decades ago to say, how do we gauge where we are, where we need to go, and how do we go about making the investments necessary to ensure that we enhance the quality of life of all our citizens while we preserve the natural environment. And over the last couple of decades, when we've started investing in developing a report card here in the United States, this has now become it's part of the vocabulary now of all our policymakers. This is something that we talk about on a day-to-day basis. Even as we looking at coming out of this pandemic, the best way to jumpstart the economy is to invest in our infrastructure. It puts a lot of people to work. It starts the engine going back again. And it's a good investment to make sure that the future generations have the benefit. So we have a responsibility of how we come out of this. How do we spend the investments in a very sensible manner so that it not only helps us for now, but also should help the generations to come. So this has now become a very important piece of the conversation here in the United States, and ASCE is very proud. And as most of you know, I, born and raised in India, was first exposed to ASCE because of the ASCE journals that I used in my research project for my master's program. And that's how I got exposed to ASCE. So when I came to this country to pursue my higher education, the first thing that I said was, I've heard about this organization, how do I get engaged? So my advisor said, here is the form and give me $5. So I filled up the form and paid him the $5 and became a member of the student chapter, and the rest is history. So there is a global standard which ASCE represents for our profession. It's a standard that has been passed on to us, and we have a responsibility to make sure that we maintain that gold standard as we move forward with any initiatives that we take. And that has been the guiding principle for this ASCE's report card as well. So the ASCE report card represents a level of effort, integrity, and credibility that the policymakers, legislators, and the general public has come to expect. When ASCE puts out a report card, they say that this is something that the professionals who have the expertise are telling us what is the current state of affairs with our infrastructure. Have we invested enough time and money in making sure that these investments are being protected and preserved for the beneficial use of all citizens and for the future generations? This is a gold standard that has come to be expected of our profession. So with that background, I wanted to say that this is also something, it's not a global standard per se, but it is a means in which us, members of ASCE, provide an assessment of the current state of affairs that is easily understandable by the common public, and it is in a very concise and a succinct manner in which the policymakers and people responsible to make the investments are able to understand when and where the investments need to be made to make sure that it continues to serve the general public. So it is a document. It is not an elaborate 300-page report that nobody reads. It is done in such a way that one can easily say where we are today and what is it that we need to do. It's like a report card. This is something that we tell people, most of us don't like to take a bad report card home to our parents because they've made the investments. We are spending our time, and when we go back home, we need to be able to tell the parents that we have learned something, we have done something good. And so this was the thought process when this was developed. I said, okay, how do we go ahead and present this information to the general public and the policymakers? So that's why it's called a report card. I know in the system, I grew up in a metric system. I came to the United States and learned how to transform and use the English system. And I keep going back and forth. And I jokingly tell people I'm a very confused Indian. So what you see in here in the grades, it's a better grade. And I know most of you who have had education here in the United States, and most of you now with, everything is in a click of a button, understand, the letter grades as compared to the number grades. Most of us are used to, first class, second class, and third class type of a deal where, if you had over 75% of grades, you have a distinction and so on. So that's what I grew up in, but this is a little different system. But this is something that I wanted to at least paint and provide you with a canvas saying, this is something that ASCE started a couple of decades ago. It has been a very successful initiative that we undertook. And it is something that everybody is now using and talking. In fact, right now in the United States, there's a lot of debate going on Capitol Hill. Emily and Anna will be able to explain to you a little bit more, how much is going to be needed to be invested. And you may have heard it through CNN and other news media as well. We are talking about an investment gap of $2 trillion to get our infrastructure up to par and to make sure that we are in a very competitive position in a global marketplace to help not only enhance the quality of life, but also to make our country competitive. So Emily is going to walk you through the process that we've used here in the United States, but then Anna will come in and talk a little bit about how do we tailor this thing for our Indian conditions. And then we can have a little bit of more discussion of some of the nuances and the details as to the level of effort that is needed to make this thing a very successful initiative. I know Ravindra was very encouraged, and I'm very excited to be able to present this to you today. And I'm looking forward to a very successful initiative and a project that hopefully in the coming years, we will be able to say that ASCE India section, ASCE India section Western region was able to initiate this initiative in India and was able to produce a report card that is being used by the legislative and policy makers and the agency leaders in India are using to enhance the quality of life for every citizen in India. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Emily to walk us through, to give you a little bit of background of how it is done here in the United States, and then we can get into what we can do and how do we go about doing it in India or anywhere else. With that, back to you, Emily, our Managing Director of Government Relations and Infrastructure Initiatives at ASCE. Emily Feenstra.
Okay, thank you, Guna. And it's really a privilege to join you all this evening virtually to talk about, I'm going to give, as Guna mentioned, a high-level overview of the 2017 infrastructure report card we've developed for the US. That's our most recent report card as of now. And then my colleague, Anna Deneke, is going to get into the details of how exactly our volunteer teams put together the state level reports. So as was mentioned, we've been really doing this report card since 1998 for the American Society of Civil Engineers. And a little bit of background or the history of how it came together. It was actually the 10-year anniversary of a report from Congress, kind of looking at the nation's public works system. And on the 10-year anniversary of that 1988, seeing that Congress wasn't going to issue another report, ASCE took up the mantle and decided to start doing the report card themselves to kind of keep the shine a spotlight on infrastructure, because really, as we all know, infrastructure is an out of sight, out of mind issue for most of us. You turn on the tap, the water comes out most of the time. You drive to work, everything's fine. It's something that most people don't think about until something goes wrong. The electricity goes out, there's a water main break, there's a bridge closure. So what we've been doing with this report card is highlighting the need to maintain and modernize our infrastructure in the US, much of which was built out in the 1900s or 1950s. And these are legacy systems, especially in the Northeast, that are really showing signs of wear and tear. So a couple of thoughts, and Guna touched on these as well, of why this works for ASCE. First of all, it's become the profile publication that we have when we speak to non-engineer audiences. It's very much tied to our mission. We consider it a duty of civil engineers to protect public health, safety, and welfare. We are stewards of the nation's infrastructure, and we carry that message of here is where we are at this point in time. Here are the conditions of our infrastructure, and here's what we need to do to raise the grades. And at ASCE, we've even done focus groups over the years of how the public perceives civil engineers. And I think this is one reason why the report card works well. Civil engineers, and hopefully this rings true for you, are problem solvers. They are solving some of the world's most complex challenges, and that you can see that in the categories of the report card. They are also trusted advisors. Engineers are ranked highly as credible, nonpartisan experts, and that's a brand we've looked to preserve and strengthen over the years. If you follow American politics, you'll know how partisan an atmosphere that we're in right now, but it really is a testament to our credibility that both Democrats and Republicans, our two major political parties, will hold up the report card when they talk about infrastructure legislation. And another note about the report card, we did start it in 1998 and we issue it once every 4 years, but it's grown over time, and Anna will discuss this as well. In 1998, I think it was maybe a 3-page leaflet with 5 or 6 categories of infrastructure. There was not a big press event. It was a fairly minor effort compared to what it is today, and it has grown and evolved and expanded over time, and we consider it, we try to outdo ourselves with each effort. So we now we're going to be looking at 17 categories of infrastructure. We're actually deep in the research process right now, and our next report card will be issued in February 2021. It is a robust kind of multimedia report. We produce an executive summary, but we don't produce a large book. We have it live all online, and we have videos and infographics, and really try to tell a visual story to support the data and the grades that we come up with. And the 4-year cycle in the US is timed with the start of a new presidential administration. So we feel that a 4-year cycle gives us enough time to see the data trends change. It gives us a bandwidth issue, so we can stand up a huge effort like this. We wouldn't want to do that every single year, I don't think. And also it serves as an agenda setting for the next presidential administration to hopefully put infrastructure at the top of their priority list. Next slide. So here's a little bit about the methodology for how we put the report together. You'll see at the end of the process for each infrastructure category, we end up with just about 3 pages of text. So again, not a highly technical academic report, but it's important to note that behind that text, behind those grades, are very strong sources of data and a very robust methodology for assessing those categories. So here are the 8 criteria that we use to assess each infrastructure category. They include capacity. So what is the ability of the infrastructure to handle current needs and future needs? Condition, this is probably the most high profile of the criteria. What condition are our assets in across the country at this point in time? Funding, what are our current funding levels and do they meet the total need? Future needs, have agencies done capital planning or long-term plans to assess what they'll need in the future to accommodate population growth and the changing climate? Operations and maintenance, this is a criteria that we really made an effort to expand our data where possible on how are these assets being maintained, especially as they continue to age, and asset management is certainly a hot topic in the industry. Public safety, are assets safe for the public? Resilience and innovation. These two, I will be honest, it's the hardest to get data on these two. We try to move beyond the anecdotal examples and find data trends, especially for example, in the water sector, how many utilities are using smart meters? Is anybody tracking that? For the road categories, how many state DOTs are making good use of intelligent transportation systems? So this is an area where we look to the federal government for data sets where possible, but we also rely on industry groups. And resilience has been an increasing area of focus for us at ASCE and also in the US government. Is our infrastructure prepared for the future with increased storms, drought, and other effects of climate change? Can it withstand and bounce back? Next slide, please. So what the grades mean, Guna mentioned that we use an A to F format like a US school report card. And you'll see just very brief descriptions about what we mean for each grade. And it's important to note here that when we lobby or advocate to Congress, we're really focused on getting to a grade of B, which is good or a state of good repair. While we'd like everything to be an A, we understand with limited resources that may not be possible, and that's kind of what people think sometimes. The ASCE report card, we want brand new roads and bridges and everything to be 10 years old or less. But no, we're really focused on B, or the state of good repair. And then as you'll see on the following slides, most of our grades end up here in the C and D category. D is at risk. F is a failing grade, and up until a few months ago, we had never issued an F. That's in critical need, unfit for purpose, but we actually issued our first F for Puerto Rico in the energy category, just because they had had months and months of black hurricane, and found that we did not get a lot of criticism for that F. It was pretty justified. Next slide, please. For the US grades for 2017 across the 16 infrastructure categories that we assessed, as you can see, the grades aren't good. I would not be pleased if my daughter came home with these grades. Most of them are in the C and D range, and they really reflect kind of this gradual deterioration over time. It's not often a dramatic bridge collapse or a huge failure, but just a lack of maintenance, a lack of funding and chronic underfunding that has led to the wear and tear that we see across a lot of these categories. And the arrows on the screen here reflect whether a grade has gone up or down since 2013. So you'll see that 3 grades decreased in 2017. That was for parks and recreation, solid waste, and transit. And 7 categories increased, 6 stayed the same. So the categories that went up were hazardous waste, inland waterways, levees, ports, rail, and wastewater. And we could do a whole presentation going into the details behind these grades, but I'll just pull a few highlights for you of issues that we're facing in the US. The one that has gotten increased attention in recent months, dam failures, is the dams category. So we have quite a number of high hazard dams, we call them in the United States, and that number is increasing as there's increased residential and commercial development downstream of dams. And what we really focus on are high hazard deficient dams, and there's about 2,000 of them in the US. And dams are inspected at this issue that we see very often is that state dam safety offices may only have a handful of inspectors, and those inspectors are responsible for at least a couple hundred dams per year. So that's a lot on their plate to oversee. There's also jurisdictional issues. There's not even a clear sense sometimes of who owns a dam. It might be a private homeowners association. It might be the US Army Corps of Engineers. There's just a multitude of jurisdictions involved. And so those are some of the issues we see and why the condition of our dams is a problem. Roads and bridges receive a lot of attention in our US report card and our transportation categories. We rate bridges in the US on structural deficiency, and there's about 46,000 bridges in the US that are structurally deficient or in poor condition. That number is declining, and that's encouraging to see, but we see still a lot of the bridges in poor condition are our most heavily traveled bridges. They're urban, they have high traffic volumes. So that's an area of focus and continued focus in the US. And for the roads category, there's about 1 in 5 roads in the United States that have pavement in poor condition. Finally, on the water categories, there's about 240,000 water main breaks in the US each year. I think that's about 1 every 2 minutes. And those often make front page news in the local news when there's a disruptive water main break. But we have aging legacy systems and often don't have a good sense, especially in smaller towns that don't have technology or water sensors, where those breaks are going to happen next. Next slide, please. The other news that comes out of the US Infrastructure Report Card, in addition to the grades, which receive a lot of attention, are the investment needs. And we use this, we calculate these based on government data wherever possible. We also work with an economist to help us generate numbers for some of these categories. But you'll see from the chart here some really daunting numbers. When you look at total needs across a 10-year period, we're at $4.5 trillion across the infrastructure categories. Then you see what our estimated funding is based on current projections, current spending, and that's about 2.5 trillion. So that leaves us with a $2 trillion investment gap for our nation's infrastructure. And the number that we use most often, because we tend to see people's eyes glaze over when they hear trillions, is $9 a day. And $9 a day is what it costs the average American family due to poor, unreliable infrastructure. So, you know, when there is that blackout in your house, or you have to take a detour because of a road closure, or you get a pothole and need to repair your car, those are all things that add up and act kind of as a drag on the economy and personal disposable income for Americans. So we talk a lot about that $9 a day, or equates to $3,400 a year in disposable income. And that's a hidden tax we're all paying when we kind of kick the can down the road and don't invest in our infrastructure assets. So a couple other things I'd point out on this chart is about half of our funding gap is for surface transportation categories. Those are roads, bridges, and transit systems. We have a $1 trillion funding gap. And a lot of the talk in Congress is about fixing the Highway Trust Fund and adequately funding some of those categories. I'll also note for water, the number is quite a bit less, but we're only spending about 1/3 of what we should be on investing in those assets as pipes, water treatment plants, et cetera.
And I'll mention on this slide, thanks Emily, the importance of solutions. One of the things when we talk about the report card, you know, engineers like to define the problem, but we also like to really focus in on what are the solutions to the problem. And we spend a lot of time on that. You know, that's our primary objective, is to talk about solutions. So we use these three categories to talk about our proposed solutions. And we do spend a lot of time, as Emily referenced, advocating on the Hill. We have lobbyists on the staff that work in Congress to make sure that our representatives understand the importance of investment. Emily talked about the numbers, and they're large numbers. We need increased, long-term, consistent investment in our infrastructure. There's a lot of pressures on government representatives. There are a lot of things that need to be funded. Same thing in India as in the United States. But we need to make sure that there is a voice heard for the importance of our infrastructure and the need for investment. And so one of the things we focus there on is, here's what happens when you fail to invest. As Emily mentioned, the $9 a day, it costs a family $3,400 a year when you fail to invest. So while we think we should increase the gas tax to help fund some of our transportation infrastructure, and eventually that will be a user fee as we move more towards electric vehicles, we think that tax is less than if you actually don't do anything, because there's a hidden tax, a cost of failing to invest that we all pay today. And it's the same thing in India as it is in the United States, where there's a failure to act is extremely expensive. This requires leadership and planning. It requires our federal, state, and local leaders here in the United States, in India as well, I'm sure, to focus on and having a vision for our infrastructure, and to work with the private sector as well. So you want the federal, state, local, and government and private sector working together to solve this problem, prioritizing projects that have critical benefits to the economy, public safety, and to our quality of life. And we're really trying to make sure as we do that, we're preparing for the future. And as we talk about preparing for the future, we want to make sure that we're considering the life cycle cost of our infrastructure, not just the upfront costs. We want to make sure that we kind of streamline the permitting process so that we can move this projects through as efficiently as possible. We want to be focusing on resilient, sustainable, innovative infrastructure. And that's where this kind of ties back into the future world vision that we talked about. We're putting out this future world vision because we want to make sure that our nation's leaders are looking over the horizon. Civil engineers need to be prepared to look over the horizon and show people what that vision looks like in the future, so we can prepare for it now and not rely on infrastructure that's already at the end of its useful life, thinking differently. So those are the solutions that we're talking about. Next slide, please.
Okay, thanks, Tom. So I mentioned here at the beginning that we don't produce a large book anymore. If you're interested in learning more about the report card, we don't need to mail you one. It's all online, and it's at infrastructurereportcard.org. And this has really allowed us to make a highly visual experience. We've got videos, short 3-minute videos you can watch if you're interested in an overview or some of the category highlights. We have an app, we have state fact sheets that are highly popular. This allows us also to track what people are viewing as part of the report. So we can see they're very interested in the transportation and water information. When there's a dam failure, they go to the dams page. They're very interested in their state information and their state facts. So that's been a nice tool for us. And another unique kind of differentiator for this report, for a research report, really is that it has a long tail. It has a long life. Up until we release the next report card in 2021, this report card will be quoted in the news media daily. And we can see that we get about 20 to 30,000 page views a month on the website for this report. People wanting information on the state of their infrastructure and the solutions to raise the grades. And just even most recently, I will mention, there has been a flurry of infrastructure activity on Capitol Hill, and that's been really nice to see, especially in light of the pandemic. We do see it as restarting the economic engine, and there's been a lot of positive momentum, but the latest infrastructure legislation that was introduced, several amendments in the legislation quoted the ASCE report card. Several members of Congress, when they made their floor remarks, quoted the ASCE report card. So that's kind of a testament and a validation of all the hard work that our ASCE volunteer experts put into this effort and our continued influence. Thank you. And now I'm going to turn it over to Anna to talk more about how you put one together.
Thank you, Emily. And thank you everyone for joining us and spending your evening learning about the ASCE infrastructure report card. So next slide, please. So I'm going to offer a couple of tips and suggestions for how to begin this process and set yourself up for success. The first very important recommendation I have for you all is to start small. As Emily mentioned, when we first started the infrastructure report card 20 years ago, we started small as well. We had just a couple of categories and we had a pamphlet as opposed to a more extended report with our visuals and our maps and our videos and all of the different concepts that go into it today. At Guna's recommendation, we are recommending considering starting a report card for Mumbai with these potential categories. So these 4 were selected because they are highly visible. They have some challenges that the report card could make recommendations for. Obviously, you don't have to use these 4, or if you're dialing in or joining us from another country, this might be less applicable, but overall, we do recommend that you start with a proof of concept as opposed to taking on too many categories and overextending yourself right out of the gate. So things to think about as you start this process, and these are questions I will answer in the next few slides, but you want to put some thought into how to form a committee. You want to have a plan for gathering data, or at least some best practices for your volunteer committee. You definitely want to think through upfront what the review process will look like, and you want to get those volunteers in place in the beginning. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then, as Guna said, always be mindful of the ASCE brand. I expect and trust that ASCE is a respected voice around the world, including in India. And so you want to be mindful of that as you go into this process. Next slide, please. So what you see in front of you is a sample committee structure. What I tell our volunteer committees here in the States, we put out on the national report card, as Emily went over, as well as state report cards. What I tell our committees in the States is that no committee is the same. There's no one size fits all, but you do want to be very purposeful about recruiting volunteers for specific roles. What I generally recommend is having 3 buckets of volunteers. So the first are the category leads. We'll talk about those in a minute. The second bucket are the folks involved in the release. So here in the United States, that could mean a couple of different things. That could mean government relations committee. So the folks that are prepared and have fresh enthusiasm to take the finished product and go talk to lawmakers, talk to agency heads, talk to the public perhaps when there's a ballot measure that they would like to get out the vote on. So that's a government relations committee. You also probably want to have a couple of folks at least focused on the press conference at the end. So finding a location, inviting VIPs, and potentially practicing to speak to the media. There's an option if you have a larger budget, and we'll talk about budget in a few minutes, but there is an option to hire some professionals here. In the US, you can hire a public relations firm to help you make inroads with the local media. You can hire a graphic designer to help you package everything nicely and professionally. You can hire a web designer, especially if you are looking to have a larger web presence. So those are all sort of what I would put under the release bucket of volunteers and subcontractors. The final bucket, the third bucket of volunteers, is the reviewers and advisors. This is the part that really looks different in each report card committee. In some cases, I'll use the states as an example, in some larger states, they have a review committee to alleviate any concerns about geographic inequity. So for example, in California, they had a review committee that included members from Northern California, Southern California, the rural parts, the urban parts of the state, to really make sure that every chapter paid equal attention to each of the various parts of California. In other states, this is an opportunity, especially if it's your first report card, this is an opportunity to help lend credibility and make sure that the report is rigorously reviewed. So they invite preeminent voices in their community, preeminent civil engineers, to be a part of the review committee and make sure that this report card is up to snuff and can stand up to any scrutiny. So you definitely want to think about your review committee before you start this process, potentially invite specific folks or accept applications or consideration, but have a plan before you start this process. The chair, and I've also seen co-chair models. The chair is a very important person in this process. They keep things moving. They keep the trains running on time, as we say. And it's a big role. And if it's a volunteer, it's a lot of hours. So if you're considering being that person, you have to have some time and energy to devote to what we call a labor of love. And next slide, please. So this is a little bit drilling into that first bucket I mentioned, the category experts. What I recommend here is having one chair for the category. So that person is responsible for advancing the product through the process. Additional volunteers can of course be on that person's team. It's nice to have a robust set of volunteers for each category so that folks can step in and move the process along. But certainly assign one person as the chair to move the category along, meet the deadlines, be the person that communicates to the chair, so on and so forth. Next slide. So this is a lot of text on a slide, but the point that I'm trying to make here is that you want to be excellent communicators during this process. If you're the chair or if you are in a leadership position, you want to set firm deadlines and communicate them early and often. You want to schedule check-in calls for your team, regular check-in calls. If someone misses the check-in call and is responsible for something, you'll probably want to follow up with them. And I highly recommend, if it's possible, holding an in-person kickoff to really get organized, get to know each other. I found that in-person meeting helps improve accountability. I think it results in a better product that requires less editing because everyone is on the same page. They understand what is expected of them and they feel some responsibility for deadlines. Understand that in-person meetings are a little bit tricky right now, but if you decide to move forward with this in a future year, definitely something to consider and certainly a best practice. And then finally, we are, as I always remind my chairs at the state level, we are dealing with volunteers, volunteering for the profession, for the betterment of their community. Sometimes things happen, life gets in the way. And so if something falls behind, do that personal outreach. Again, keep the communication open, offer to help. Or offer, identify people that can serve as assistants and then tap them to continue a chapter if that chapter falls behind. Next slide. So what we recommend, and I would say this is very important to keeping the project moving along, we recommend no more than 1 year from the point that you release, or excuse me, from the point that you kick off to the point that you release. We recommend that for a couple of reasons. First of all, the data starts to get old. At least in the States, a lot of the transportation data is updated about every year. And so if you extend this process for more than a year, you end up having to go back and redo the work that you've already done in some cases. Additionally, I have found over many of these state report cards that volunteers begin to become disengaged after a year. So I think it's important to set a firm schedule, communicate it so that your volunteers know what is expected of them and when, and keep it to a reasonable timeline. Don't let things slip. Next slide. So here is a sample timeline. This, as you will see, it's about 11 months from the kickoff to the release. I have allotted, or the state has allotted, about 3 months for data collection, and then about 3 months for writing the chapter itself. You may need a little bit longer for data collection if you are starting this process from scratch. A lot of times you need to make inroads with the agencies to collect data, and that can take a little bit longer. But I do recommend about 3 months to draft the chapter. In the States, our chapters are only about 1,500 words, or about 2,000 if you include sources and recommendations and the executive summary. So it's not that long. We have found that that length is really optimal. We have lawmakers and the general public with short attention spans, and so we really need to keep it a manageable length and say what we need to say in those 2,000 words. 2,000 words is not going to take you forever to write, so don't give folks forever in the writing process. You really need to truncate it, and again, make sure that you're keeping the ball rolling as you move through this process. Again, depending on your internal review process, you may need to allot a month or two for internal review. As you will see, I've also allotted a few months for finalizing the report card. We certainly do that at the national level. We take about 4 months from the time the content is finalized to the time that we publish. That's to build the website, to proofread, to schedule pre-briefings with agency personnel at the federal level, let them know what's coming down the pipeline. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then as you see in July 2021, outreach, promotion, and advocacy, I certainly can remember when we put out the report card in 2017 at the national level, you feel like it's out and it's done and your work is concluding, but in reality, it's just beginning. So going back to what we said and what Guna said in the very beginning, it's really important to make sure that you're writing for a public audience. This is a tool to communicate your expertise to the general public, to your lawmakers. So once it's done and out in the world, you are highly encouraged to make sure it doesn't sit on a shelf and collect dust. Instead, you should plan to share it widely. In the States, we encourage our members to go to city councils with the grades, to visit their lawmakers, both in Washington and at home. When there's a ballot measure, we encourage them to get involved and advocate for infrastructure. So in reality, in many ways, your work is just beginning when the report card is published, which is why going back to my committee chart, it can be helpful to have a committee of government relations folks that are focused on outreach. Next slide. So a little bit about the budget. In short, what I've included here is general buckets of areas that you could spend money in the States. I've had groups put out report cards on shoestring budgets, and I've had committees put out report cards on very healthy, hefty budgets. Again, this goes back to, if you have the funding, you might want to consider graphic design, catering for in-person meetings, if those ever become a thing again. Consider hiring a PR firm. Again, you're trying to reach the general public, and a PR firm would have recommendations of how to get on the news, and they may have inroads to meet with journalists or get this on the news. Next slide. Guna?
Thank you, Anna. Ravindra and others, as you've seen, there's a lot of information here in terms of how to set it up and so on. Emily, Anna, and all of us are ready to support in terms of providing you some guidance, having some calls to discuss, the process of how to set things up and all the things that are involved in here. I know there's a lot of information that needs to be digested and planned, but as I said in the very beginning, it's all about, right out of the gate, we are engineers. we need to make sure that we, have, scope, schedule, and budget for everything that we undertake. So this is a project that we're going to take, so it has to be planned. We need to have a chair. We need to have it organized. And most importantly, it's all volunteer time. And so people need to understand that this is a commitment from everybody engaged. And so therefore, this is something that, we all need to work together to make sure it happens. When it comes to data collection, this whole thing is dependent on the data. We are engineers. We all like to base everything on information, on data. We always go back and check, what was your recommendation based on? What were the numbers that you used in your calculations? We need to double check and check. I'm not sure how easily this information is available. This is where the partnership comes. So this is something that we as civil engineers, members of ASCE, need to work closely with all the agency representatives. It's not one working against the other. It's all of us working together so that we educate the general public about the needs, and we also educate and the political members and policymakers to make sure that everything is done upfront. It's very transparent, it's very credible, and the information that we produce doesn't get challenged. I know we're running short on time, but so we will quickly go through and wrap it up and open it up for questions. But data collection is very important, and we need to have a good plan and make sure that we collect as much information as we possibly can. And when we put something out, we need to make sure that we're able to stand behind the grade that we assign to a category of infrastructure. So we need to have a process that is foolproof and that has a buy-in from everybody. People working with the various agencies, engineers, helping us, trying to come up with a grade that everybody is comfortable so that, we can make the right investments for the future. Anna, we can go on to the next one. Next slide, please.
Sure. So I'll just touch on this really briefly. And I understand it may be slightly different in India, so Guna, feel free to jump in. But one of the things I stress to my committees is open the relationship with the federal agencies or the state agencies early, keep the dialogue open. The report card is never in the US is never intended to be critical of agency personnel. In fact, quite often we find agencies are doing the best they can with very limited resources. The report card in the US is a tool to help agencies get the resources they need. So we go to Congress or we go to the states and we emphasize that more funding, smarter policy, more support, more personnel are needed to improve the overall condition of our infrastructure.
And communication is very important all through the process. It would be even better if you can get some of the folks from the agencies, if it's possible, to have some of them serve on these committees as well. And then also have some of them provide reviews of this information that we have collected to make sure that everybody is comfortable. So it's a constant communication both ways, get them engaged early enough, and make sure that this is being presented as a group and not just one piece of it, because it's not just an ASCE stuff that ASCE members are doing, but we need to have agency resources also working with us and making sure that there's the credibility and integrity in the grades that are being assigned and doesn't get questioned. Next slide, please.
Do you want remarks here or
this is something that depends on, we have a process here at ASCE in terms of when this is getting released. I know, this can be also tailored to the local practices in terms of how it's done. I know Tom will also attest to it. It goes with a lot of press release, a lot of stuff on both medias, all kinds of medias at the time of the release, before the release. And so this has to be also very well planned, because ultimately it's the message that needs to we need to make sure that the message gets communicated in the right way. It's not about what you say, but how you say it. We need to make sure that when we present this information to the general public, to the elected officials, policymakers, executives, that, everybody, there is no surprises, and that, people are, appreciative of when this information is being released. So this is something else also that needs to be thought through very carefully and planned out, so that we don't stub our toes at the very end of the process, having spent all this time. This is what would finally reflect on everything that we have done. So we need to make sure that, this is done very well as well. So we'll be more than glad to answer. I think next slide is probably saying that we're at the very end, saying thank you to everybody. But I'd like to personally thank Ravi, Ravindra, Ethan, Dr. Varghese, Danian J, for helping us with the slideshow, and all of you, I know, for for having stayed up at dinner time or evening time, listen to this presentation, and hope we were able to cover as much of this information in a short time. But we will be there to support you and help you make sure that when you undertake this effort, that you successfully complete it in a timely manner, so that it's a very meaningful information that starts to spread like wildfire through the rest of India and other parts of the world as well, because this is a very important tool, and this is what we do and what we do best. And so therefore, this is one way of us making sure that we are, fulfilling our obligation of being a global leader in enhancing the quality of life of all citizens of this planet that we call home. Thank you for this opportunity. Personally, I know Tom will have a few things to say, but it's a privilege and an honor to represent all of you. And I'm looking forward to working with you in the coming years to make this a great success. Tom?
Just thank you, Guna. I'll just add my thanks as well. We appreciate your time, and we're stand here to help. We'd love to talk some more about this and take any questions that you may have right now if we still have time.
Yeah. Thank you, Guna, Tom, Anna, Emily, for elaborate and simplified mode of presentation. Everybody must have understood the importance, objective, and future prospective outcome. Wish everyone find easy way to encapsulate it. Now it's time for question answer. I request Dr. Ravi Sinha to take over the charge. Please put up your questions in the chat box. The chat box is open now.
Thank you, Professor Varghese. Actually, we did circulate and we had a large number of questions, but because of the shortage of time, I'm going to be putting just one question each to Guna and to Tom. I'll first start with Tom. This kind of an endeavor, it cannot be done unless there is a partnership of a large number of people, perhaps representing multiple constituencies or multiple organizations. So they have to work together for a common objective. And in India, we are very keen to also start the process of developing a report card for our infrastructure, so that we are able to better understand not just the status as we see with your eyes, but also in terms of the impacts and the options which we have in front of us. And this particular webinar, for example, has around 700 participants, including many who are non-members of ASCE. And we feel that when we do the development of the webinar, of the report card, it should involve active participation from all these kinds of people who are interested in this issue, and not just limited to people who are ASCE members. And we would like to know from you regarding the experience in the US, in how it worked in terms of a collaboration between like-minded people, and what were the key advantages you saw emerging out of that process in the US, which is likely to be applicable to us also?
Absolutely, that's a great question, and you know, kind of highlights the importance of engineers working in teams with all of these different you know, other types of engineers and non-engineers. Earlier this week, we were on a conference call with the executive director and the government relations director for the American Association of Port Authorities. So we work on, you know, on our grade on ports. We coordinate with the Association of Dam Safety Officials when we're working on our dams grade. We work on with floodplain managers, another association, as we're working on some of our water and flood stormwater issues, which is the new category that we're adding to our report card for 2021. So there's a variety of different associations, and we work in a lot of different coalitions with them, advocating for infrastructure investment, but also engaging them working on our report card. The American Public Works Association has put a representative on our report card committee. So our overall committee has about 30 different people, and we're coordinating with other associations. As Guna and Anna and Emily referenced, we also want to make sure we're coordinating with the government agencies, because we want to have them involved in this and feeling part of this. Obviously, we're getting data from them, but we want their involvement in developing our report card grades so that we can actually use it to help them. We're not trying to critique them, because we're in the same boat together looking for more support, more investment in our infrastructure. So we're here as a resource, and we want to make sure that they understand that. But yes, we're coordinating with many other associations, and I would recommend doing the same thing in India.
Thank you, Tom. I have one question for Guna, which comes to if you can explain, just for our understanding, what became different when the ASCE's scorecards start being used for decision making, because the infrastructure quality is often apparent to the users. They can see with their eyes or experience when they are moving anywhere. So they have a sense of what is the quality of infrastructure. But obviously the report card gives a lot more information than that. The report card also helps highlight the options and the advantages and disadvantages of various decisions. So can you give some example of where the report card has been able to move forward or take decisions which were earlier quite difficult to do?
I mean, I go by personal examples. You know, when I first started talking about the report card and the grades, you know, both my wife and my daughter thought it was a self-fulfilling prophecy for me as a civil engineer, because this was a job security for me and so on. But when I explained to my wife, I said, when we have potholes on the road, you know, we run into these, you know, on a regular basis, which means I have to replace my car tires every so often. I have to change my shock absorbers or go waste time taking the car to the mechanic to fix my shock absorbers or change my tires or do something else. And when I started relating to how much time is being wasted, how much money that we have to spend from our own pocketbook every year, you know, to fixing these problems, I said, if only that money was available to you to go shopping, you know, to do other things, then it started to relate in terms of what it really means to each member of the family. So that is why, as Tom rightfully pointed out in the beginning, we not only identify the issues, but we also provide solutions, make sure that what are the benefits to the general public. You know, this way people don't have to waste 2 hours to commute each way every day to work and back, or have to spend time trying to fix their vehicles. Or, you know, if, you know, in India, we all experience this. We have power outages. We don't get continuous supply of water in our taps. You know, we have to get up early in the morning to fix our buckets and other places, pails, to collect the water, or even to flush the toilet and make sure that, you know, it's functioning 24/7. All of these things, you don't have to worry about these things. And when people are willing to pay the money because they understand the benefits of some of the beneficial use of these things, so that's where the report card comes in and gets a general buy-in for people to say, this is money worth spending. This is money worth being investing. Otherwise, people start to think this is for somebody's benefit, not mine. but it is for everybody's benefit. As Emily pointed out, here in the United States, we have, water line breaks, every so often. So what does that mean? And also when there is a leaking pipe, we spend a lot of money in water treatment, but what happens is when we have treated water coming through a pipe and there is a leaky pipe and you waste so many millions of liters of water, treated water that goes waste unseen to the eye underground, then that's money being wasted. So if you fix all these systems and you do it correctly and keep maintaining them on a regular basis, then you don't have to keep wasting your money, throw good money after bad. So that's where people, it's all about educating the people about why we are doing this, what does it mean, and and ultimately, when you start talking in terms of how much money it really costs for each individual, that's when everybody starts to realize. So that's kind of what. And before I conclude, one thing also, Ravi, is if there are some good questions, if it can be assembled, what we have done before is, if you can forward some of those questions, we can develop some responses and send it back to you so that you can distribute it to our members, if they feel that the questions have not been answered because of lack of time. We'll be more than glad to do it. So as I said, we are here to help, and we will be able to answer any questions in now and in the future and help you get this thing off on the right foot and be a very successful endeavor there.
Thank you, Guna. As American Society of Civil Engineers, India Section, Western Region, we believe that we are ready to start our own scorecard. We also thank you for the suggestion to start small. And that's why we would like to take maybe a sample area in Western region somewhere, which is within our domain, and start learning the process of doing it. Also start fostering partnership with other organizations to do it. And we hope that we can rely on you again and again for the support and advice which we need.
Absolutely. It'll be my privilege and pleasure. And I'm sure Tom and the team, all of us will be ready to support. I suggested those 3 or 4 areas because knowing Mumbai, when you have your monsoons, you have your flooding issues. So that's why storm water, I know you have an excellent transit system. I've, explained to Tom about your Tiffinwala stuff and your transit system in Mumbai. You don't need a, computer system to manage these things. You have managed this so very well over the years. But, there are a few places where I think we can help your local government, and talking to your commissioner and stuff during our visit in February, I'm sure that he would be appreciative of some of the things because he's also looking to do all that he can to help the citizens of Mumbai, have a better quality of life.
I'd just like to add that Dr. Guna and his team have already offered their services to start a report card with ASCE ISWR. So I'm very thankful to him and to the entire team of ASCE.
Yes, and thank you all. And now I now pass over to Professor Verghese.
Yeah. Hello, now it's getting a little overshooting our time, scheduled time. I request Engineer Yasir Fatehi, who is the Secretary of ASCE ISWR, a practicing civil engineer since 25 years in construction management and contracting, currently managing a firm namely KY Fatehi Constructions Mumbai, to present a vote of thanks.
Thank you. I, on behalf of ASCE ISWR, extend a hearty vote of thanks to all the participants in this important webinar of report card. I would like to thank President Dr. Guna, Tom, Megan, Emily, Anna, President of India Section, Western Region Ravi, Professor Ravi, Ravindra, Professor Ravi Sinha, and Hiten. Also, I would like to thank KDK College and Dr. Verghese for being part of this webinar with us. As time is short, I will not take much time. I would like to thank everybody on the deep insight for the goal of report card and starting this in India. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, the link for the feedback is available in the chat box. Kindly fill up. The e-certificate will be issued in their respective email ID. I, Dr. Walson Varghese, Professor and Head of the Department of KDK College of Engineering, wish on the behalf of KDK College of Engineering and ASCE ISWR, wish everyone be safe and be happy and sign off today. Our next 20th e-talk by Dr. Ashish Juneja, Professor at IIT Bombay, will be on 29th June at 4 p.m. The registration link is on. Please register. Thank you. Thank you to all once again.
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. हाँ जी chat box में the link is shared there in the chat box. Please fill it up.